us. This is the latest Empower Member Spotlight. I'm joined today by lovely Eleanor Fletcher. So, Eleanor, I'll hand straight over to you and tell us about what you do.
Hi, my name's Eleanor, as Kerry's just said. Repeat that. But I run Riverford Organics in the York, Hull and East Riding area. So it's a franchise business that I own, and I've been doing it for exactly 3 years as of tomorrow, I think. So which is middle of August. So yeah, 3 years into owning a business. And it's the first time I've owned a business or run my own business. So I came from a more corporate world, lived down in London for a while, but we relocated back to York, which is the city of my birth. And I've taken on this business and been having a lot of success with it. What we actually do is deliver organic fruit and veg direct from the farm, other produce as well. And that's mainly domestic delivery to now about 750 customers a week. So we're pretty busy, and we've had a very, very busy pandemic, as you can imagine. Food delivery has been much in demand. So it's been logistically challenging at times, but we're very pleased with kind of how it's gone and how lots of people have turned to organic food during this weird time.
Yeah, that's really so. How did you sort of get into that then? Obviously, what's your career background? Have you always been in this kind of field, even though it was corporate, or?
No, I wasn't involved in food at all. Although my brother is a chef, so he's always been involved with food. But I haven't been involved with food work-wise until this point. I used to work in publishing, books behind me. But most recently, for 10 years, I worked for a company called Egmont, who publish a lot of the children's books and magazines that you may have purchased for your own kids or nephews, nieces, friends. And I managed, I kind of worked on the commercial side. I wasn't a creative person. And I managed relationships with the likes of Disney, owning Star Wars and Frozen, and Mattel, owning Barbie, Thomas the Tank Engine, that kind of thing. So it was very, very kind of office-based, very kind of hierarchical organisation. Quite a lot of international travel. I was very lucky to go quite often to lots of Scandinavian countries, European countries, but also America at times, including a trip to San Francisco to see Lucasfilm, which was super exciting.
Cool.
Yeah. Feels like a dream now. It's quite odd. My life's so different.
So what was the thing that I get? How did you even think about getting into something like this then? It was a real change of focus.
Yeah. It's one of those funny things. So I'd been a customer of Riverford Organics for about 9 years in London and had been a very happy regular customer. And we were at a point in our life where, like many people who've moved down to London from better places like Yorkshire, had a sort of slightly yearning to go back home. And I persuaded my husband to take a chance on Yorkshire. And my husband's a teacher, so he was ready to relocate the minute he'd retrained as a teacher, whereas publishing is a bit more challenging outside London and Edinburgh, really. So I was kind of looking for something different, but I wasn't actually at the point of actively looking. And I think I kind of can't really remember the moment, but I think I was on the Riverford website doing my order one day, and they were advertising the franchises they had available, and it said York and Hull, and I thought, oh, and sort of clicked the link and started reading, and it all felt a bit dreamlike at the time. It was a bit like, well, do I really want to do that? I don't know. And it just actually then kind of fell into place in a way, because it was, it looked like a great opportunity. It had previously been 2 franchise areas that had been a lot smaller, and had been merged into one to make it a more viable business. And then suddenly, before we knew it, 2 months later, I was in the middle of applying for the franchise. We're house hunting in York, sorting out moving schools, all of the relocation stuff, and getting ready to start in August 2018, which is when I got going with that.
Cool. So you were literally kind of, complete change. So that must have been exciting, but had challenges, I guess, on all the things you had to figure out. How did you go about that?
Well, I was lucky really taking on a franchise business, and I have to say, like, I know that not all being a franchisee isn't for everyone, and there are, some quite unscrupulous franchise operators out there. So it's not something I would like definitely recommend as like just get a franchise. The right franchises can be really good, and Riverford have a really good long history of kind of partnership with their franchisees. And the other thing that was appealing about it is that it's a territorial franchise, so I'm not competing with any other franchisees.
Right.
So you either live in one of my postcodes, or you live in one of the postcodes for the Darlington area or the Doncaster and North Lincolnshire area. It's very clear cut. And that's quite nice as well, because there's a network of franchisees around you who are kind of like supportive siblings, because they've kind of been through all of this themselves. And if you've got a question about a van or a driver or something, and then added to that, Riverford give you a whole week's training at the beginning of the franchise, so just before you start. First, I mean, even before that, there's quite a lot of rigorous business planning. You have to present to the board. Finally, the kind of franchise management team choose you and then kind of present you as their candidate to the board of the business. And so I was approved in the April for final approval, but sort of knew from February that it was very likely that it would be me. So week's training, and then you have a kind of weird week where you're kind of moving. Well, in our case, we're moving house and settling in. And then like the purchase of any business, there's an exchange of contracts, and then there's a moment of completion, and the business is mine, and the staff transferred to me. It was 2 staff at the time. So one day they work for Riverford directly, next day they work for me as a sole trader, trading as Riverford. And it was quite a steep learning curve, but the training week was very good because it covered everything I really needed to know at the beginning. But like everyone running a business, you've got to learn quite a lot about HR and accounting and things that you might not, particularly if you come from a big corporate background. You might not know. And like I'll just say, on my early experience of attempting to do my own bookkeeping, I now know why there's so many people in the finance team in a company. Because you're just like, oh man.
And I was just going to say, one of the things that comes up a lot when we have these sort of conversations with our members is all the hats that we wear as kind of small business owners, and the challenge of being able to do all of those things, and then suddenly getting to a point where perhaps you can outsource
exactly, or rather that you really need to outsource. Like I've just recently outsourced my HR because I just got to a point where I had 2 employees and everything was quite straightforward, and I could kind of handle that. And then over the course of the last 3 years, the business has grown quite a lot, and then sort of accelerated growth through COVID. And I've just ended up now with about 6 people in my team. They're not all full-time, but there's quite a lot of people to look after, and there's concerns, and you've got to manage people properly, and not just because it's legally important, but it's also you want your team happy. And actually I've just realized at the beginning of this year that I needed some professional help with that. So via the network I've pulled in someone, Caroline at Grounded HR, who's been absolutely great, because it's just someone that I can turn to, and I've never been more grateful, because actually in the last 6 months I've dealt with all sorts of less pleasant things. But if you've got good HR advice, I've had superb guidance through that.
So what keeps you kind of motivated and inspired? And obviously we've driven heavily by relocating, but you wanted to have your own business. Was that always a dream, or was it just sort of all the timing and stars aligned?
It was more the latter of the stars aligning, because I had always liked the idea of having my own business, but I kind of always thought, rather naively, that you kind of had to kind of invent something. And the business success stories we hear, particularly kind of at the national level, is kind of like the guy who invented Tangle Teaser, or the Ella's Kitchen story, or the Innocent Smoothies people. And and it often starts out with someone having an idea for a product, like a particular product, and making that often in their kitchen or on their kitchen table or something, and then through a series of connections that becoming a thing, and that's the kind of business, that's what's presented to you quite a lot. And I suppose I never really thought about how other ways of having business.
Yeah.
It was more about, you can actually go out there and purchase a business, and in my case franchise, but it doesn't have to be a franchise, that you can go and look, and there's specialist agents selling businesses, so it would be a good route into business for people who want to do that.
Yeah, sure. So have you had people, have you got people around you that also in your family that have run businesses? Is there an inspiration? You must have an entrepreneurial drive in there somewhere.
I think so. That's a really funny question. So I think I go back quite a few generations in my family. Well, not hugely back, but my dad was a university academic. He taught history at York University, so he's like not a businessman.
Yeah.
And my mum's a school teacher, but there was no business in our immediate family. But I've seen my brother running his own restaurant in London, and seen the kind of the trials and tribulations of that, because hospitality, even pre-COVID, is a tricky business in lots of ways. So I sort of saw that, and then just going back in my dad's family, we were Leeds manufacturers, so we've traced quite a bit of the genealogy, and although my grandparents kind of lived in Hereford, and sort of moved out of that world, their grandparents were very much in the kind of managing factories and commercial world of Leeds, which is quite, it's quite interesting that maybe become a bit of a full circle sort of family wise. So there might be some sort of business nous that's been handed down in the genes there. So.
Yeah, good point. So in terms of your I guess those challenges and things, then what is the biggest challenge, do you think, when you kind of embark on this working for yourself journey?
I think the thing I honestly found the hardest was just, I felt very lonely in the first few months. So it's very odd, particularly if you've been like, I'd been going to an office which there were 120 people, and obviously because it was back in 2017, 2018, we went to the office every day, just like you normally did, wearing proper clothes and everything, and it was just a kind of standard like London office life. And then I would travel a lot, I worked, in fact the last 3 years I was there, I worked as part of a team where we have, 2 of us were based in London, 1 was based in Copenhagen, 1 was based in Berlin, so we spread around, and that was great. And so we'd be traveling a lot and just seeing, with people all the time, and then with clients, managing these relationships with these brand owners for the publishing. And you would be, it's funny because I look back on it now, you go to a trade show like the Bologna Children's Book Fair, and you'd end up just exhausted in your hotel room at sort of 1:45 every night, because you've been talking all day, meeting clients, client dinners, drinks receptions, going to screenings, and you just think, God, it's so nice to be alone. But then to have that suddenly flip, and like 3 months later I'm sitting basically in our back bedroom here, it's my office.
Yes.
And thinking, right. And it is very isolating, I think. And a lot of people in the last year have got more of a taste for working from home and what that's like. But I think when you are first running a business and you're used to having those people around, and it can be a bit lonely. And I was kind of looking for a bit of connection thing, which is actually how I found what is now this wonderful network, but the sort of earlier version of it. And that's I think I first came networking in December 2018. So yeah.
So that leads us nicely to Empower.
Yeah.
What you've been a member since then, and obviously come on board with the new online platform. What brought you here? What do you like about it?
I think first thing, it was the first kind of networking thing I went to, and business networking, we all know it just sounds a bit sort of whatever. But it is very different, and I know that was at the core of Women Mean Businesses originally was, and Tracy's vision. But it's just so welcoming and friendly, and also just felt very kind of relaxed. So I like the fact that it was quite agendaless, that it was just more of a kind of hanging out session, as getting to know each other session.
Yeah.
And then, very active online community, which was really, really, really strong, and continues to be really strong. And there's like a gang of people out there you can ask a question to, and people can support you. And then I found lots of collaborations. I've sourced quite a lot of the help I've needed, specifically, whether it's finding someone to help me with HR, or getting hold of someone to do some excellent printing for me. And I've been on training courses that members of the group have run, and they've given good rates to the group. And it's just been a kind of like just a lovely, friendly, sort of friendly network thing. And well, network obviously, but I think it's a bit different. I over in the East Riding, I've been to a few kind of more sort of formal, kind of traditional networking groups, and I don't find them very helpful. The methods of having to kind of like come with a particular thing, and then you have to present your thing, and then you brainstorm it. It's just not really kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to be how I would work. And I know a lot of people like those groups because they know there's often a non-compete on your category, so you'll be the only person who provides print, or the only person who sells fresh food or something. But actually, that wouldn't be a thing that bothers me. I've always taken quite a collaborative approach to marketing. Like if someone else is selling fresh food, then we've got a lot in common.
Yeah.
And I like the way that Empower does highlight that, and that's the structure, the sort of it doesn't have that traditional networking structure, which does allow for a much freer and more collaborative approach.
Lovely. And you've done loads of different things, haven't you? I mean, you've not just done selling your fruit and veg boxes, you do cooking classes and stuff as well, right?
Yeah, so I do in normal times I do a kind of cooking cooking evenings, which are kind of, they're about drawing people in to be customers, obviously, but they are I sort of hire a hall and sell tickets for people to come for the evening and cook up a massive feast of vegetables, and that's been good. And I've had Empower members on those courses, and I've kind of through that network of networking I've done through that as well. I've got into York Food Festival. I now do a cooking demo at York Food Festival every year.
Great.
Which is great. So I'll be doing one in September. I'll let you all know. Probably something autumnally, or maybe some sweet corn if it's still warm then. But yeah, and it's just, that's been great to do marketing in lots of different ways, and definitely being part of different like networks, connections has helped with that as well.
Right. So what would you say to anybody who's thinking about coming over and joining us then?
I think it's really worth it. I mean, I honestly think it's obviously been a bit of a strange 18 months, apparently. But I went back to in-person networking 3 weeks ago, can't remember, but very recently we had a morning session.
Yeah.
It was good. We were still under the restrictions, so we couldn't really mingle properly. But it's just so lovely to sit down then at a table with other women who are doing business, and just share a few stories and share a few insights. And some people are directly asking for a bit of help and advice, and other people are just there to kind of connect, and see what see where we can all get to together. And I think once we can mingle properly, the actual network itself will go back to being as fantastic as it was. But I think there's also this fantastic online community of people who are really engaged. And now it's away from Facebook as well. It's a bit easier as well. I find it's easier to kind of manage my engagement with that.
Right.
Because I just find, Facebook's so many things to a person. Like to me, it's partly keeping in touch with friends, it's partly work, it's partly play, it's part, and to actually kind of have a dedicated space for Empower, where you're like, well, away from the noise of Facebook and the advertising and so on, you could go and just, that's where you can kind of connect and get advice.
Great. That's lovely feedback, and great to hear that it works that it's, you know, in a dedicated space for members, really.
Yeah,
With all the resources that we're complete, you know, we put in there regularly as well, and the training and maths classes, and
absolutely.
yeah, good, good.
Really
Well,
good.
so this is going out in September, Organic
Right.
September. So we'll share the link to your website and social media and what have you, so that people can find
Lovely.
out more about what you do and what you offer, and
Mm.
how to cook with all those lovely vegetables.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got lots of content on my social channels with recipe ideas and cooking ideas. So really
Great,
good.
thank you. No, I think I kind of assumed that, you know, there must have been some sort of drive to be running a fruit and vegetable business since you were a baby, you know.
Yeah,
Um, but actually, it's such a good story that, you know, it just sort of turned out right. Timing was good.
yeah. Timing was good. The location was where we wanted to be, and
Yeah.
so far so good. And um, it's helped that we've had a really great year through the pandemic.
Yeah.
My business is now at the level it would have been in the 5th year, as I'm going into the 4th year. So that's been very nice. But like many people will know, a bit of rapid growth can come with quite a bit of strain in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm always kind of happily looking forward. It's nice to look back as well and learn, but it's going to be fun to see how the world comes back together now.
Yeah. Well, well on you for achieving what you have done with it so far.
Thank you.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Yeah. See you soon, Ken. Thanks.